KPFB in Berkeley, KFCF in Fresno, and online at kpfa.org. The time is 1 p.m.
Something happening here.
This is Guns and Butter.
Exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there. Yeah, that's right. Telling me I've got to beware.
I'm Bonnie Faulkner. Today on Guns and Butter, Russ Baker. And today we are going to focus on the Union Bank of Switzerland, UBS, and Texas-based Harken Energy. Russ Baker is an investigative reporter and author. He spent 1.5 years as a correspondent and reporter based in the former Yugoslavia. He has written for The New Yorker, Vanity Fair, The Nation, The New York Times, The Washington Post, The Village Voice, and Esquire. He has also served as a contributing editor to the Columbia Journalism Review. In 2004, he devoted himself largely to researching stories that provided disturbing insights into the pre-presidential behavior of George W. Bush. Russ Baker is the author of Family of Secrets, The Bush Dynasty, The Powerful Forces That Put It in the White House, and What Their Influence Means for America. And I'm delighted to say that Russ is able to join me here in the studio live today. Welcome, Russ.
Thank you very much, Bonnie. It's great to be here in person.
Wonderful that you've made another trip out here to California.
Well, for you, I'll always come out.
You know, I've just read your newest article, The Game That Goes On and On, a Swiss Bank, a President, and the Permanent Government. And I noticed that you begin the article with a photograph of President Barack Obama playing golf on Martha's Vineyard last summer, in fact, with the head of, I guess it's UBS Americas, what's his name, Rick Wolf?
Robert Wolf.
Robert Wolf, I beg your pardon. Wasn't UBS in big trouble with the United States government not that long before this golf game?
Right about the same time. You see, this is what interested me. I had actually been on Martha's Vineyard right after Obama was there, trying to raise money for our nonprofit investigative reporting group so we can look into exactly stories like this. And I remember seeing all this coverage about Obama's vacation and what a great time he was having, and that they had ice cream and the children had a good time and so on. This was the coverage from, the major media organizations. And I sort of remember looking at him golfing, and I sort of wondered who he was golfing with. And one was a young aide, another was a friend of his, a physician from Chicago, and that made sense. And then the fourth person was this gentleman, Robert Wolf of UBS, and I thought, well, that's strange. And so I went through all the media coverage to see who looked into why he was golfing with this banker, and there was nothing. And even the New York Times had one reference. They said, in one sentence, it said Robert Wolf, and then it said, call it donor maintenance. And then it went right on, as if let's call it donor maintenance. We assume the man's a donor, and there's nothing more to be said. Well, I disagree, respectfully. And so I began sort of looking into that, and the result is the article you referenced, which is on our website, whowhatwhy.com, and basically, Bonnie, what I was struck by, the same thing you were struck by, is that this is this bank that had just been forced to settle with the U.S. government on charges that it had been flagrantly encouraging Americans to not pay their taxes through very elaborate means, which I describe in the article, using shredders and code names, and I mean, it was like spy stuff, and they were encouraging, and they ended up having to pay $750 million in fine, which of course is not much for them, but it's still a sizable fine. But that's the way that they do business. And I just thought, it doesn't seem very smart of Obama to choose this man as his golfing partner. Clearly, I think he was rewarding him for the fact that Robert Wolf raised, I want to say, $1 million or so for his presidential campaign. But it obviously wasn't appropriate, and it led me to want to ask, what more can we say about UBS? Why are they interested in President Obama?
Well, yes. Now, in your article, you mentioned that UBS has been the worst performing foreign bank here, that UBS is the world's biggest manager of private assets, and that UBS is very much a part of the permanent government. How would you say?
Well, that term, of course, is sort of loaded, but it's a shorthand for the notion that the more things change, the more they remain the same. Whoever's president, these outfits end up doing fine, no matter what the short-term economic effects are on the rest of us. UBS was interesting in a lot of different ways. In my book, Family of Secrets, which is, as you know, out now in paperback with a different title than the one you mentioned, it's The Bush Dynasty, America's Invisible Government and the Hidden History of the Last 50 Years. I look at institutions like UBS and their sort of ubiquity, their ability to roll right into one White House after another. Now, one thing to start recently with UBS, Robert Wolf was a key figure in the Obama campaign. His a co-vice chairman, a fellow named Phil Graham, former senator, head of the Finance Committee in the Senate, and very important figure because he was perhaps the point man for deregulating all of these instruments that contributed to the economic collapse. So Phil Graham then opens up the territory for places like UBS. Then he gets hired. He leaves the Senate, gets hired by UBS at an enormous salary. And in 2008, when his colleague Robert Wolf was very much had Obama's ear, Graham was the top economic advisor to John McCain.
Right. And now are you saying that Phil Graham works for UBS?
Yeah, and so what happens is these top guys are in both camps. In other words, they had the game wired. Whoever was going to be in the White House, they were going to have their ear. And we know that about Robert Wolf because although this has received almost no attention, as I note in the article on whowhatwhy.com, he was appointed quietly to this Council of Economic Advisors for Obama. And it's interesting who else is on there because I see a fellow named Donaldson, who was a Yale friend of Bush. He ended up handling his firm, investment firm, and handling a lot of the Bush family assets. And Donaldson was George W. Bush's appointment to the SEC, wasn't he? Well, that's right. He was the SEC chairman. He was one of several SEC chairmen under George W. Bush when all of this sort of deregulatory process. Well, you know what's funny about that, Russ, is that Clinton has just been out crying and falling on his sword about the financial crisis. And he was sort of trying to blame it on the fact that George W. Bush had replaced Arthur Levitt at the SEC, and so he was replaced by Donaldson, right? And then they continued to, deregulate investment banks? They did. I mean, Donaldson did a couple of good things also to his credit, but he generally, I would say, contributed to this process. And it's interesting also about the relationships. Donaldson and George W. Bush were both members of Skull and Bones, this fraternal order that is, whatever it is, they take it very seriously. It's a way of kind of creating cohesion and loyalty to each other. A third member of Skull and Bones, a fellow named Austin Goolsbee, was one of Obama's top economic advisors. Austin Goolsbee is the head of this. He's the staff director for this economic advisory council. And then Robert Wolf of UBS, he is on the White House Economic Advisory Board presently, right? Right. That's what I was referring to. And so my question was, number one, why is this man put on there when UBS was already being investigated for basically keeping taxpayer dollars that were supposed to be going to the federal government out? Why is he being made an advisor? Why is he being made an advisor also when his own bank performed so horribly? I mean, what kind of advice could he be providing? Right. And who was behind the Stop Tax Haven Abuse Act of 2007? Barack Obama as a senator, and one of the co-sponsors in the House was his now chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel. So at least they were talking the talk of stopping these kinds of things when they were, hoping to attain the White House. Now, what's interesting also about Robert Wolf and UBS is, as you go back, this is a chapter in Family of Secrets. It's called The Quacking Duck, and it's about UBS and a circle of institutions that seem to have some sort of connections with each other that seem to work hard at getting the ear of prospective presidents. And as I document in Family of Secrets, they worked very closely with George W. Bush. And when you're